If you discovered an ancient book, a quarter of which tells the future, and at least 50% of that quarter has already happened, you're going to think that book is pretty important, aren't you? Prophesying the future is what makes this book different from all other so-called sacred texts and sets apart Christianity and Judaism from all the other world religions. Well, you will have already guessed, it must be the Bible, the one book which has probably exceeded all others in creating more heat than light in debates and arguments throughout the world over the last 2,000 years. There is no doubt that this book is full of contradictions, crazy laws, mindless violence and unbelievable stories, but the prophecies cannot be ignored. After nearly 60 years of reading, studying, debating and throwing this book in the bin many times, the prophecies convince me that it has something to say which can only be described as supernatural. By the very nature of who we are as humans bound by time, space and 3 dimensions, it stands to reason that there is one thing we cannot do. We cannot tell the future. We don't even know what tomorrow will bring, never mind the next 3,000 years. So are prophecies evidence that some sort of God exists? That at some time in the distant past, he, she or it revealed the future to certain men and women, and in the process these people were educated enough to be able to write down these revelations for others to read? That despite all its contradictions and unbelievable stories, the Bible may in fact say something that's undeniably true? Well, it certainly seems so, and yes, I do believe it's evidence that God exists, if my opinion is of any importance to anyone. Don't forget what we are talking about here. Statements, stories or parables which the Bible writers would not have been able to write without help from an outside source. In many cases they wouldn't even have understood what they were writing. You need to try that sometime. Try writing something which makes sense, but you don't understand yourself. Here is an example. Pause the video and read this for yourself. Then ask yourself, does it make sense? Of course, it does make perfect sense, but do you actually know what it means? Do you think that the writer, Ezekiel, knew what it meant? But there is a problem. All Bible prophecies have a sell-by date attached to them. In other words, time is running out in 3 ways. Your own lifespan, the lifespan of the earth, and the life of the prophecies themselves. This is the inherent nature of a prophecy. Once it's happened, there's no going back and trying to change history. Even when the prophecies happen in our own lifetime, we still appear helpless to change them. Take climate change for example. Once global temperature increases just 1 or 2 degrees, there is no going back. The ice caps will melt, the sea levels will rise, land will be lost, homes will be destroyed, millions will become refugees. Surely, I'm not going to say that the Bible prophesies climate change. Well, it certainly talks about the days of the Son of Man being like the days of Noah, and we all know what happened to Noah. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. So let's start with the times that we are living in today. Ethnic diversity is an expression heard every day on the media and describes how the population of every city in the world is made up of people from all parts of the globe. Different religions, cultures and origins, all living together in cosmopolitan cities. The question is, do we live in harmony? Are we truly integrated? We like to think that we are, and most of the time we live peacefully side by side, but the reality is different. We are divided by family, birth, religion and even education. In many areas, children as young as 5 years old are separated from other children by so-called faith schools. City area codes are now identified by local people and estate agents as Asian, Caribbean, Chinese, and so on, as ethnic groups intentionally decide to live in the same area as their own ethnic group. Well, surprise, surprise, the Bible prophesied that this would happen. It talks many times about the end times and gives many clues and signs about what to expect at that time. One of these signs is the attempted but failed integration of society. This is Daniel chapter 2. Just as you saw that the feet and toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom. Yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even as you saw iron mixed with clay. As the toes are partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. And just as you saw the iron mixed with the baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united, any more than iron mixes with clay. This is a small part of a much larger prophecy which I'll come back to later and explain in full. Just remember for now how long ago this prophecy was written. Approximately 3,000 years, according to most Bible scholars. Let's now look at another symptom of present-day society, the ever-increasing gap between rich and poor. This fact of life needs very little explanation. It simply exists for all to see. Footballers earning over 10 to 20 million pounds a year, while in the same country pensioners have to live on just £6,000. How can this be an issue for Bible prophecy? Well, simply because when Jesus was here, he gave quite a bit of moral teaching, and one of the things he kept saying was it is better to be poor than it is to be wealthy. Jesus answered, "If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me." When the young man heard this, he went away sad, because he had great wealth. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "I tell you the truth, it is hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God." Then in the last book of the Bible, called the Revelation, we have a major prophecy which has become known as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. These are usually interpreted as being conquest, war, famine, and the mass extinction of humans. It is not for the faint-hearted, as each horse and rider brings violence, death, and destruction on the earth. Here is a description of the 3rd horseman. When the Lamb opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd living creature say, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard what sounded like a voice among the 4 living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a day's wages, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wage. But do not damage the oil and the wine." The oil and the wine are obviously symbols of wealth. The quart of wheat and the 3 quarts of barley are symbols of poverty. And the scales are there to show the injustice and imbalance between the two. How up to date is this prophecy? Is it evidence or not that a supernatural force is at work in the world? As I said just a few minutes ago, the Bible is rejected by many people because of its contradictions and unbelievable stories. But the prophecies are a whole different ballgame. Here is the next one. Wars come and go all over the globe and throughout history. Civil wars, world wars, independence wars, revolution wars, and of course, not forgetting, religious wars. Whenever and wherever there has been a so-called civilized society, there has been war. The terrorism and insurgencies of the present day are no different. Perhaps the best of all quotations about the endless nature of war came from Plato 400 years BCE. Only the dead have seen the end of war. But the wars in the Middle East appear to be a little different. Unlike other wars, it's a war which seems to have been going on forever. If you accept that the Bible has something to say about history and the ancestors of present-day Israel, then the fighting between the Israelis and Palestinians has been going on for over 4,000 years, making it the longest war in history. And as if you didn't already know, the Bible prophesied this war, and before it even started. In fact, before the two ancestors were even born. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." This prophecy is describing two children as yet unborn, Jacob and Esau. It would now take another 1-hour video to explain the history and genealogy of these two, so you will have to do your own research or take my word for it. They are the ancestors of the present-day Jews and Palestinians, and one was prophesied to serve the other. Is this happening today or not? This cartoon sums up the present-day situation quite well. Israel believe that every part and every corner of the Middle East belongs to them. That includes the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, both of which are Palestinian territories. Israel is predominantly the larger, wealthier and better equipped country, and so continually asserts itself by building homes or dividing walls on disputed territory. In turn, the Palestinians lose their homes, farmland, fruit trees and vineyards on a daily basis. Has this prophecy come true or not?